Oh, what's poppin', Zeep?
Gleeble boy.
Alright, put the track on. I'm about to spit some.
Alright, man. So what you gonna spit about?
Talk about modern black history, and I'm not just gonna talk about the slaves. There's more to black people than misery. Let me just try and run that through your brain. See, I was thinking about racism, then suddenly a realization came. It ain't biases or the hate skills of black leaders were a historical claim. And for me to really get into that, I'ma have to talk about civil rights. When Europe's imperialist attack, they had my brothers stressing every night. The whole continent got dichotomized, they were forced to change their whole way of life. But even after they were colonized, they wasn't gonna go down without a fight. A.P. Randolph was one of the biggest lead members of the black community. His nonviolent protests were the realest. He fought for equal opportunity. He taught other civil rights activists how to use nonviolent protest methods. And after this, he even cracked the list to meet the press when the DC March ended. The next civil rights leader to mention, another brother from the USA. You might have heard he had a little penchant for dreaming. I'm talking about MLK. Darkness can only be conquered by light, and hatred can only be conquered by love. That's a quote directly from Junior right in the movement he was champion of. A Muslim man and black nationalist, these are words that describe Malcolm X. Let me tell you one of the things he did. He took his black pride and wore it on his chest. Adversity is the greatest teacher. The truth is on the side of the oppressed. He's a bit of a controversial preacher, but he still inspired his people to fight and rise up to the test. Hold up, I gotta finish this up, so I'm about to go fast. Yo, Toussaint Louverture, General who ensured Haiti's freedom for sure in the revolution. Nelson Mandela was fighting apartheid in South Africa, leading the movement. And Kwame Nkrumah was not just a rumor, he was in Ghana fighting the British influence. Nnamdi Azikiwe was a revolutionary leader in Nigeria, he wasn't fooling, cooling. I'm just about done. I'ma quickly rerun over all this information I'm saying so I don't sound like a bum. Black leaders fought segregation and they were campaigning to be treated well and not shunned. Fight colonial policies, abusive economies, and now look at how far they've come. Run against revolutions, racist institutions, and whole countries just to get back their rights that were expunged. Cut.
Now you've heard the lyrics, so let me tell you what they mean. The first leader we're going to go over is MLK himself, specifically his contributions during the Civil Rights Movement. King's first leading role in a protest was the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, which was so successful that by the time the Supreme Court had ruled against segregated seating, he had become a national symbol of peaceful protest in the Civil Rights Movement as a whole. He would later go on to be one of the leading members of the March on Washington, which sought to shed light on racial injustices in the U.S., and there he would give his famous I Have a Dream speech, which not only gained international attention, but also gained him the support of President Lyndon B. Johnson and thousands of supporters across the country during the Selma to Montgomery marches. His work would eventually result in both the Voting Rights Act of 1965, as well as a huge cultural shift throughout all of America and maybe even the world. Nelson Mandela is widely credited with ending apartheid in South Africa. In 1944, he joined the black liberation group known as the African National Congress, or the ANC, and he would use his position in the organization to fight apartheid policies. In 1952, he established the first black law practice, and in 1955, he was involved in drafting the Freedom Charter. After the 1960 Sharpeville massacre, Mandela abandoned his nonviolence and began to support acts of sabotage. Then, Mandela was incarcerated in 1964, and was only let out nearly 30 years later by President de Klerk. But even while in prison, he continued being supported by his people, and when he got out, he became South Africa's first black president. Toussaint Louverture was born a slave, but due to his heritage was well educated. At the age of 33, he was freed from his lifetime of servitude and became wealthy through his ownership of a coffee plantation. In 1971, he left his plantation and joined the rebellion against the French in a leadership role, and began lobbying for more rights for enslaved people. He would eventually shift his views to pursue the complete abolition of slavery, and would switch his allegiances to the French when they outlawed slavery in 1794. Louverture worked tirelessly to improve Saint-Domingue's economy through paid labor and trade negotiations. He also kept up his military. By 1802, he had declared himself the governor of all Hispaniola, and despite dying in a French prison in 1803, his lieutenant continued his work and secured independence for Haiti only a year after his death. So, basically, what I'm trying to get at is, with all these strong black leaders that I've highlighted here, I don't really get why every lesson about black history, I guess, sounds something like...
Today's subject is slavery.